offered Avon in Blake 7 by the BBC. Well, it's not a long story. I was telephoned by my agent, a lady at the time, and she said the BBC are doing a futuristic series in which they would like you to portray a brilliant engineer, quote. And I said, well, how far in the future? Tomorrow, next year? She didn't know. And really, what does an engineer look like? I don't know. So I thought, well, I can't wear a hard hat or anything like that. So I wore a tweed jacket with leather on the elbows, and I tried to look as if I knew how to build the BBC TV centre from scratch. And I went along and I met the producer, and he said, well, actually, we're doing this thing set something like 1,000 years in the future, we're not really sure. And he's a computer expert, so he's not an engineer at all. And also, he's a little bit ruthless, we think. And here are the first 4 scripts. Take them into a room, read them, and tell us what you think. So I read them. I read the first episode, and Avon, the character I was up for, wasn't even in it. So I thought, well, this is not a particularly auspicious start. Then I read the next 3 episodes, and I realized that potentially he was the most interesting character. So I said, yes, I would like to do that. And 3 months later, that's how long it took, I got a call saying, right, we start. And off we went. And we started Blake 7. It was really as simple as that.
Blake Kerr Avon. When it comes to computers, he's the #2 man in all the federated worlds.
Who's #1?
The guy who caught him. You've got nothing to be ashamed of. Do you know, he came close to stealing 5 million credits out of the Federation banking system.
What went wrong?
I relied on other people.
I'm often asked, is there anything of Avon in me, and is there any of me in Avon? Of course, yes. There has to be, because I created the character, therefore I put into him parts of me. Also, I put into him what I would like to be. Given the circumstances, quite extraordinary circumstances in which he found himself, I like to think that I would have reacted in the same way. Therefore, although, yes, he and I are alike in some ways, we are not in others, because he is idealized, in a sense. But I think that if you were in outer space, up against a very nasty situation, such as the Federation on your tail and everybody trying to kill you, you wouldn't be able to trust anybody, therefore you would react in a certain way. Same would apply today. If you were stuck in London or New York or whatever, and you couldn't trust anybody, you were on the run, you would behave in a certain way. And I would like to think that I would behave in the way that he behaved, realistically. When the Blake character was removed from the series at the end of Series 2, it was halfway through, then the Avon character inevitably changed, because he was looked upon as a kind of leader. Now, I had developed him in such a way that he wasn't interested in anybody else. He was a loner. He was interested only in his own ends, nobody else's. He was a very honest and realistic person. If we were all honest and realistic, I think we would say that the bottom line is, what's in it for me? And he felt that way. So inevitably he changed a little bit, and I had to alter to accommodate what the writers were putting in. So I made him, shall we say, stressed. Not psychopathic or anything like that, although some people, some critics have said that indeed he was a psychopath in the end. He wasn't. He actually has a line where he says we're going somewhere where there are psychopaths, and he smiles. Now, a psychopath doesn't know he's a psychopath, so there you go. But he became under stress, and therefore he made mistakes, and I find that interesting. If you're Superman or Captain Marvel or whatever, you're not going to lose, so there's no tension. Avon was very vulnerable, and therefore there was always the possibility that he might lose, and I think that that contributed to the appeal of the character. Relationships with women, as far as Avon was concerned, he liked women a lot. That's something we have in common. But he didn't trust them. I'm not saying that he didn't trust them because they were women. He didn't trust anybody. You had to prove yourself with him. He was a very honourable man, I think. That's what I tried to put into him anyway. If he gave his word, whatever else was wrong with him, he would keep his word. He liked Servalan. She kept her word. She was a nasty piece of work in many ways, but if she gave her word, she kept it. And he admired that. Also, she had power, and he liked that. When I said he liked women, he did. He liked women, not girls. I don't know why that should be. I suppose it was an instinctive thing. We used to have a story while we were doing the series that any woman who came in to the show, she would look at the script, and if she was kissed by Avon, she knew she wasn't going to be in another episode, because that became known in our profession as the kiss of death, Avon's kiss of death. Because he would never end up with anybody, because he was not the sort of person that you would come home to every evening for your tea and a few hours in front of the television, was he? Exactly. And neither was Servalan, for that matter.
You could rebuild it all. All those worlds could be yours, Avon. They're there for the taking. You and I could build an empire greater and more powerful than the Federation ever was or ever could have been. Now, Avon. At this moment, we can take history and shape it in our own image. Think of it. Absolute power. There is nothing you can imagine that we couldn't do.
I am thinking of it.
We can do it, Avon.
I know we can.
We'll be answerable to no one. Ours will be the only voice. Imagination, our only limit.
Imagination, my only limit. I'd be dead in a week.